Hello and welcome to the Nerdy Worry. Today we got a nice one for you. We got the Eternals review. We are reviewing and discussing the movie that just came out a couple of days ago. We're recording this a little bit afterwards. We are your hosts. I am Robert.
I'm Billy.
So yeah, let's just get right into it because this was a
Ooh,
nice, juicy movie right now. Honestly, I think this was better than the other movies that I've seen so far from Phase 4.
really?
Hmm.
'Cause a lot of people did not like it. It was rated
Yeah,
worse than Thor 2 on Rotten Tomatoes.
yeah, and I think I know
Super worse.
why. I know why it's rated worse than most of the other Marvel movies.
Why?
Because a majority of the reviewers and critics in the movie industry are white male heterosexual people. And this had a much more diverse cast with a lot of differences that would be, different than those critics. So obviously, like they would think that, diversity is getting shoved down our throats or whatever they would state, and they would like have a bad review, and then they would just say more and more bad things about the movie, like,
Mhm.
bad plot, bad character development, blah blah blah, which I totally disagree with. I think this was a very interesting plots. There are a few things that I have problems with about the movie, but they're not something that's going to degrade the movie so much. I found this to be a very enjoyable movie because I've watched it twice, and both times I really enjoyed it. So I think it's just the way Hollywood is, run by all these white males that just, have their own version of what Hollywood should be. And of course, this was completely the opposite of that. So yeah.
I don't know. I did think it was better than Thor 2. I'm not
I
gonna
mean, yeah, it was definitely better than Thor 2.
Yeah, I'm not gonna venture to guess why they didn't like it.
Mhm,
But I will say that I liked it much more.
mhm.
Um there was some things that I was like, okay, it didn't some parts did not feel like a Marvel movie to me.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I don't really have anything bad about the movie, just that some parts didn't feel like a Marvel movie.
I
So it was
feel
like
like this movie had a lot more emotional weight to it. Like it felt more heavy. It felt more intricate. Character development really had a big part of it, but it's just like it kind of grasped more of the human side of it and just having the outside perspective of these heroes having to see all the things that happen throughout human history and just like having to deal with their own crises as well as having to deal with stuff that's happening on Earth. So I think that dynamic really kind of made the movie more emotionally resonant in a darker way than what we're used to in a Marvel movie.
which is kind of ironic considering they're not humans. Spoiler
Yeah.
alert.
That's already been
uh,
established that we're going to be talking all spoilers here.
yeah. Uh, yeah, I agree with that. It did have um a lot more emotional. It showed their emotional vulnerability more so than other movies. And I
Hmm.
was thinking about that. I think the reason might be because they've been around so long.
Hmm.
They've seen so many generations that like Tony Stark only sees his own generation kind of
Right.
thing. But they've been through so much
Hmm.
that it kind of just builds on you after 10,000 years or however long they are.
Yeah. And I think it was very resonant when, like, the very first thing that we saw of the movie was like a Star Wars-esque like credit roll where you see like, the description of like how the universe began and why the Eternals and Deviants are there. But we get
Mhm,
more in depth with that throughout the film, which was kind
mhm.
of interesting because like, I've heard that like it's kind of like a lie almost like it's like to establish what the world is thought to be of, but of course in the movie you get more lies that are being exposed.
Mhm. Yeah, it's supposed to like set up the Eternals' knowledge, everything
Right.
that they knew at that time.
Hmm.
My friend who was sitting next to me when we watched it, he's like, "I didn't realize I paid to read a book or something like that." That was pretty funny.
I
Um,
mean, you had to read basically throughout the movie because Makari is deaf, so you had to have an
read
interpretation
the
of the
sign
sign
language.
language. So
Mhm. I thought that was interesting, only because oh, well, I don't know if this is true. I don't know if it's like the English sign language. I just thought it was interesting that they all knew English and they
Yeah.
knew the English sign language if it was that version or the
Mhm.
United States version. I just thought it was
Yeah,
interesting.
I always have that feeling about like, why are certain characters in certain movies, not just this one, but in other movies, and it's like, why can't it be more authentic? Like, for example, like 300 or something that's set in ancient Rome or ancient Greece, why aren't they speaking in ancient Greek or Rome
Mhm.
and they're speaking in English? And I
No one
think it's
wants
just
to read
because
that.
no one's going to read that. No one's going to want to do that. I mean, that's way too much work on the actors. It's just easier to speak in English, and then some parts will be spoken in another language. So,
Yeah, it's probably difficult to get the accent right if you're gonna speak the language, right?
right. Yeah.
I don't know.
So, do you want to just talk about like the best parts of the movie that you really liked?
Best parts or questions?
Well, we can do questions as well, kind of. And like, I'll say my favorite parts. How about you
Okay.
do your questions? So, like, because I
Okay.
have most of the information that you're probably going to want. And I have some of my favorite parts that I could just like explain around, and we can kind of go through most of the movie that way,
Mm,
unless I
I'd say
touch on
that's a
something
valid.
you.
I'd say that's a valid assessment. So yeah, why don't you start us off then?
So like one of the favorite parts that I had was the fact that this was such a diverse group of people, and I just love the different personalities that each one of them had, with Makari's deafness, with Druig and his kind of like stoicness, with Thina and her, kind of broken mental states, with her like having to be reset but not being reset. So she's always trying to attack them and trying
Mhm.
to relive the past lives and like go against the Eternals because they were from other planets and they have been destroyed already. So it's like her memories are like coming back. Of course, I love like, Fastos and like having the first like homosexual kiss like in a Marvel movie. That's like amazing. I love that, we had the first sex scene actually in a Marvel movie, like a very intense sex scene for what Marvel, and like I saw it when I was by myself and I was like, damn. And then I saw it with one of my friends and he was like, this is a Marvel movie.
Yeah, that part. Not my. I didn't like that in the Marvel movie. I think that was
Billy's like, I'm a
unnecessary.
child. I can't deal.
I think that was unnecessary.
Oh
That's
no,
just
that was totally necessary. I'm going to vouch for that 100 times out of 100.
it, but you don't think like I feel like there's other things you could have done that showed how much they loved each other that didn't need to be that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I
I
think
think
it,
there's
it
other
shows.
avenues.
I think it shows throughout the movie, like, as Icarus becomes a betrayer of the Eternals, you could see how visceral and intense the emotional attachment was, and how much of a betrayal it was for Cersei to understand that Icarus did all the things that he did. And I think that's where they kind of established that, and like to have like a very human connection with the Eternals, because remember, they're like very powerful beings that come from celestials and stuff. So how do we
Mhm.
make them human and how do we relate to them? Well, they'll have human emotions, they'll have, interactions with humans, and they'll do things that humans do because that's who they are, and that's how we kind of connect to them in a way.
I guess it was just disturbing. I
It's
was just
your
wasn't
opinion.
I wasn't expecting it, which is why I think it was
Oh,
like it was such a shock.
yeah, and I wasn't expecting it either. I didn't think they were going to do that, and I had to think about it because, like, I remember the times when, like, Tony Stark, like, brought like a woman reporter to his like mansion in the first Iron Man, and like
Mhm.
that wasn't even as risque as this. This was probably like a good like 20-25 seconds of just like pure like actual sex scene, which I'm not surprised that Disney's done this because I think they're like testing the waters to see like what is possible, in a Marvel
Mhm.
movie. And I think like, having such an emotionally resonant movie is helpful if there's like an intense emotion that we can all kind of like, see and intensely understand. And like at certain points in this movie, I did like tear up a little bit a couple of times. Like when
Okay, it
Thena
wasn't just
is about
me.
to lose, when Thena's about to lose her memories, like when Fastos is trying to figure out what to do about, like, do I want to help them? Do I want to sacrifice, my son basically to having this happen? I think
Yeah.
the moments when like Ajax is trying to be like the person to help bring the Eternals together, like, with Fastos and the atomic bomb, with, Athena, with, just she was a very emotionally resonant character that allowed there to be a humanness and human quality. And I think they were more human than we can realize, and I think we're so used
Mhm.
to the fact that these are superheroes and they're superhumans and these are not, but they definitely
Yeah.
showed their human side throughout this entire movie.
Hmm. The actors did a great job
Hmm.
portraying like the pain that they felt throughout the whole thing. I think.
The only things I like, I didn't care that Ajax didn't get enough screen time. I think that she should have gotten more screen time, which I'm kind of upset
Right.
about. I thought she was going to be more prominent in the film, which she
Right.
was in flashbacks and everything. But like when she is revealed to be dead, it's like in the second act, like, well, that's a waste. That was a waste of an amazing talent.
Right. Yeah, I was very surprised by that too.
Yeah, and
Because they
then like
also didn't really highlight. I can't think of his name. The one who went pew pew pew.
Kingo.
Thank you. They didn't. He wasn't a prominent character at all
Oh,
until
he was.
like
He was more
halfway through.
prominent than Ajax. In the flashbacks, he
Not in the
wasn't, but
first
in
half.
present day, he is
In
definitely
present
like,
day, he was.
yeah.
But at the beginning, like I think every single character talked in the first half, like in the
Mhm.
past and the flashbacks, except him.
Yeah, he had like a couple of lines.
Did he? I don't know.
Yeah,
You saw it twice, so you know better
yeah,
than me.
that's
But
true.
I don't know. I also thought his power was weird,
I think
right?
it's just funny that, like, they probably told Kunal and Nanjiani, it's like, you could just do finger guns and we're just gonna make it look cool in special effects. That's probably is like, what's your power? Oh, I can shoot beams and stuff. And it's like, okay, just do finger guns the entire movie.
All I
You'll
could think
enjoy
of
it.
was when he was going like this, and this
Yeah.
happens with any character who can go like this and shoot things, is
Mhm.
Kamehameha from Dragon Ball Z. That's the only
Yeah.
thing I can think of. But no matter what character it is, this movie, any other movie, that's
Mhm.
all I can think of.
Yeah.
And I hope I'm not alone. That's funny.
But I also didn't like Sprite. I think that Sprite towards the end, she had her motivations very mixed, and I think her emotions really took over because, like, she had emotional attachment for Icarus, and she decided to go off with him while the emergence was happening, and it wasn't because she thought it was the right thing to do. It's just because I love Icarus, so I'm gonna just
Mhm.
go with him no matter what, which I think is kind of, it's not the right way to go, I feel. And I think her motivations kind of slipped. And then, like, she eventually is realized, like, she wants to be like a regular human who's going to grow old and like do stuff because she's always portrayed as being a child throughout the entire film.
Yeah,
So I understand it, but I just think it's kind of like not the best motivation.
I don't know. I mean, I before she mentioned how hard it was on her to always be a kid and how she could never be treated like an adult because she's been a kid for 7,000 years or whatever it
Mhm.
is. I think it's at 10,000 or like, a lot of time. And she can never, there's things that adults can do that kids can't do.
Right.
Like, she probably couldn't drive. She can't, like, get a fulfilling job. She can't have a life. She
Hmm.
is stuck being a kid for basically ever,
Right.
for as much as she knows. So she can never have like a significant other. She can
Hmm.
never do all these other things. And before she mentioned how painful that was, I was thinking how horrible it must be to be trapped like that forever.
Yeah.
And then when she brought it up, I was like, okay, I was right. No, I was like, okay, I get this.
Hmm.
Um, this is how she feels like she might. I don't know if she thinks she'll get him as like a boyfriend or something like that. I don't think she thinks that. I think she just is craving uh what's the word I'm looking for?
She's craving being an adult.
Well, I feel like she's craving connection.
Hmm.
You know?
Someone who will understand her for who she is and not just like treat her like a kid. Like
Exactly. Yeah.
basically what everybody thought was.
Exactly. I don't know. It didn't surprise me that she went with him.
Yeah. I mean, I just didn't like it. I just didn't care for that.
Yeah. I don't know. Also, I missed his name again. Pew Pew guy.
Kingo.
Kingo. Thank you. Um, it was weird how when everything like in the heat of the moment they found out like all the betrayals and everything that
Mhm.
had happened. He doesn't agree with stopping. Um,
The emergence, yeah.
thank you from happening. So he just leaves. He basically he leaves and then he's not in the movie until he ends up in like the last minute or 2 minutes or whatever adopting
Mm,
Sprite.
right.
But Kingo is like he's there. It's like no, not for this. He's out, and then and basically the most dramatic part of the movie, he's not there. I
Yeah,
just thought
I
that was
know.
funny. I thought it
Hmm.
was weird as well,
Yeah.
right? I don't know. It was like you have the superhero character, and then he's just out
Hmm.
and doesn't show up at all. And I feel
Yeah.
like that doesn't usually happen. I feel like it's
Mhm.
like someone I don't agree with this, then the fight happens, and then they come in no matter they come in anyway because that's who they are, kind of thing.
Right.
You know,
And I
that's
think
really
it's just how the whole thing works. Like, Kingo may not agree with what they're doing, but he's not gonna like fight them like Icarus is gonna do, or Sprite.
yeah.
And I think that's why also Sprite was still accepted back in because like she was clouded by her emotional attachment to Icarus, and that's why she went and did what she did, but she knows like maybe this was the morally right thing to do, and that's why she decided to get transformed to do a human because she doesn't really want to do this kind of stuff anymore. But
Yeah.
Icarus, I think, was totally perfectly fine. Of like, he knows that he did a huge betrayal, killing Ajax, indirectly killing Gilgamesh, so therefore he has to kill himself. That's his punishment, basically.
Mhm. Did you know? I don't know if this was intentional, but the whole legend around Icarus and like the mythology is that he
Mhm.
flew too close to the sun.
Yeah.
I didn't know if they planned that for his ending because they're
I mean, like, I think it's kind of like it was like implied. A lot of things that are implied in the beginning of the movie turn out to be like things that happen at the end, like flying into the sun, the Legend of
Mhm.
Icarus.
Yeah,
So I think like he kind of, I mean, how else is he gonna die? You know, how is he gonna self-sacrifice himself, basically?
I don't know.
I think finding the sun is kind of the way that his legends is going to be. So I think that's an appropriate way that I think he would have done that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they could have done it a different way. It
Mhm.
was just weird. I just wonder if they intentionally connected it to like the mythology.
Yeah,
I don't know.
maybe.
And I'm happy that um Cecil, what's
Cersei.
Cersei, thank you. Um, I'm happy that they didn't get back together
Oh
because I
yeah,
liked her new boyfriend. He was funny.
which we will get into in a minute.
Yeah, I liked him. He was funny, and I was every time like something happened because she mentioned that they were together for 5,000 years,
Hmm.
so that's a long-term relationship.
Long time.
Yeah. So I was like, no, stay with the original guy. No.
Yeah.
Uh, but,
But one final thing before we get to your questions that I really liked about this movie were just the visual effects. I saw this in IMAX both times, and the
mhm,
visuals just looked amazing. And I was absolutely correct when I saw the trailers, and I knew I was like, I had to see this in IMAX because
mhm.
like some of the shots are just incredible. I know it's all special effects, but some of the shots are just amazing. Like just
Yeah,
having Tiamat coming out of the ocean in that like very wide angle view of him
mhm.
in the hand coming out of the ocean, just beautiful,
I was
you
gonna
know?
say that must have been like the most like visually breathtaking scene.
It looks almost real. Like it feels real, like especially if you're seeing it on a big screen, like it feels like that's actually in the ocean. You know, they did an amazing job with all the special effects, not just for that one particular event, but like throughout the entire movie. I think it was just visually amazing, you know, and I think that's why, you know, a lot of things were shot in IMAX and things were made so like, you know, Sprite was able to do the illusions and like, you know, Cersei can manipulate matter and change things. Like it looks visually amazing when like certain things like that happen. So I thought that that was one of the best things of the movies. Just visually, everything looked awesome.
40 years ago, people would have been like freaked out.
Where are
Right?
the ropes and the strings?
Right? Yeah. They would have been like, this is real. uh,
So let's get to your questions because I know you probably have a good amount of questions.
I only have actually a couple I can think of right now. I know
Okay.
I had more. I should have written them down,
Mhm.
but I was lazy and I didn't. So I only have like a few questions. Let's just go to the post-credit scene because this is like the big one that's on my mind.
Okay.
At first, I thought it was a joke, kind of like a Howard the Duck thing.
Oh yeah. Howard the Duck being in the MCU again.
Yeah, I kind of thought it was going to be something like that,
Mhm.
but it's not.
Mhm.
Harry Styles,
Mhm.
who is he?
Okay. So for those of you who don't remember, but you probably should, this is actually one of the better end credit scenes or mid credit scenes that I've seen in a Marvel movie, probably since like I don't know when, like maybe Far From Home, basically. Let's say that. Like this was one that I was just like, oh, this is interesting because it actually introduces something, you know?
Something big.
Um, so in the scene, the remaining Eternals that went off in the Domo to go and find other Eternals out there in the universe. Um, they're trying to find them. They can't find other Eternals, and they can't find the Eternals that are on the Earth because you know, uh, Arasham took them away to face judgment for you know basically killing Tiamat.
Mhm.
Um, and then they sense something that's going on in the hallway, and then there's this like rainbow kind of like teleporting, almost like the Bifrost kind of. It's like
Yeah.
teleporting thing where it's like somebody comes out, and it's Pip the Troll. Which I was like,
Okay.
oh,
I
I
didn't
was like,
know
oh
that was.
god, it's Pip the Troll because he's like he's a very weird character that was born out of the 70s and kind of got more attention towards the 90s with the Infinity Gauntlet saga in the comics.
Mhm.
Um, he's kind of like
Is he
he's
like
a
a Howard the Duck?
he's kind of like a Howard the Duck. He's like he's a very much a partier and like a drunk and like you know he's just a very odd character.
Okay.
But the one that you really more care about is the one who he's introducing, who is the son of Thanos.
I thought it was
And
brother.
oh yeah, sorry, Bleh. Brother of Thanos. Yeah,
I was
brother of
gonna say.
Thanos. Yeah, brother of Thanos. His name is Eros. He is also called Star Fox, played by Harry Styles, and he is an Eternal.
Mhm.
And you could tell
Yeah.
because he also has one of the spheres that like Ajax and Cersei had.
Mhm. He just does that
Um,
get up.
yeah. So since he is the brother of Thanos, it also indicates that Thanos is an Eternal who just had the deviant gene, where that's why he looks purple and he's huge and he has like, you know, the weird, you know, facial things and everything. Because Thanos has the deviant gene, whereas Eros is just a normal Eternal, like the Eternals that we saw in the movie.
Uh-huh.
Um, so that's pretty significant, you know, having a pretty big character. And he's like, yeah, I know where your friends are. I know who uh, Aaron Cham is, and I can be able to find them for you. You know, he's trying to help them. So he's
Yeah.
an interesting character in the comics. His abilities are able to manipulate the emotions of people, and he uses that to basically seduce women to be with him.
Is he like a comedic character?
Kinda. He's a hero, but he's kind of like, you know, he's kind of laid back, you know. He's a laid back kind of hero. It wasn't in the comics, at least. It wasn't until I think it was that Thanos was like on his like mad rampage to like get all the Infinity Stones and like wipe out half of the universe, that Eros was like, "Oh, this is serious. Like, I need to do some stuff that like actually benefits people." Because he was a womanizer, he's a partier, kind of like how Pip the Troll is. So it's kind of like he's not the like he's not like the rest of the Eternals, basically. He's not like this heroic godlike figure. He's kind of nonchalant about it. Then that's the difference between the Eternals from Earth and Eros, who was on Titan and everything. Like he's more of like, chill.
I think that's perfect for like at first I thought it was weird that they bring Harry Styles in because he
Mm,
doesn't necessarily fit. Well, only like he's just such a big name, and
yeah.
Marvel doesn't usually bring in people like that.
Mm,
Um, but that sounds perfect for him.
yeah.
I mean, I don't know him very well, but from what I've heard, he's very much a goofball, kind of like Chris Hemsworth.
Mhm.
I think that sounds very very interesting.
Yeah. I didn't expect that mid-credit scene. I have heard rumors that Harry Styles could be in the MCU and he might be playing Star Fox. I knew this a couple of
Really,
weeks before. I've heard them, but I'm like, no. I didn't believe it. I just didn't think that it would happen. And then it
it
just
sounds like a
happened. I'm
joke.
like,
Yeah, I'm actually really looking forward to seeing how he does in this character.
yeah. Because he's gonna probably pop up again in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 because
Good point.
he's actually the brother of Thanos, and who's the daughter of Thanos? Gamora and Nebula. So like they're
He's their
gonna
uncle.
interact with each other at some point. There's probably gonna be some way that he's gonna like, embed himself in there. The next Eternals sequel, he'll probably be there when like Judgment happens with Arishem and like everything else. Yeah, I just feel like this is a nice fit, and I think it's going to be an interesting character because like there's people like Warlock. Warlock's going to be in the MCU now, and I think like just having these fresh new faces and these cosmic beings that we've come to know in Marvel Comics is going to be very nice. Especially in the space type movies with like the Marvels and Thor and Guardians of the Galaxy and everything. So I'm
Hmm.
very excited to see him be in this role.
Yeah, I think it'll be fun. The post credit scene,
Hmm.
like the final, the end boy.
Yes,
Um,
the one with Dane Whitman.
yes. Who was the voice at the end?
All right. So, do you know who Dane Whitman is?
Moon Knight, right?
No.
Is that the name? No. What's the name? Did I mess it up?
He is the Black Knight.
Black Knight. Oh, okay.
Yeah. And so his family history, as he said in the movie, was very complicated because his like great 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 grandfather was the first original Black Knight.
Okay.
And he wields the sword, which you see in the post-credit scene. It's called the Ebony Blade.
Hmm.
It's kind of like, and it seems like in the movie, it's a organic kind of living weapon,
Yeah.
which is interesting. And it's probably because like of all the souls that have been taken by the Ebony Blade before.
Hmm.
Um, and of course it gives him like uh an enormous amount of power and strength and he's kind of bloodthirsty as well, whoever wields the Ebony Blade. So it's kind of an interesting, weapon of choice for his family lineage, basically.
Very, very much so.
And that's what he was probably going to tell Cersei. So he goes back and he's probably going to try and hold the Ebony Blade. And there's a voice that says, "Are you sure you want to do that, Mr. Whitman?" And it's been confirmed by the director and by Kit Harington himself that the person who did this was what?
Is it the guy from What If?
No,
Okay, then who was it?
good guess.
Okay.
It's Blade.
Ooh, the vampire hunter guy.
Yes, yes. Who's going to get his own movie in a couple of years. That was his
Interesting.
voice. Mahershala Ali, I believe is his name. That was his voice.
Samuel L. Jackson would be a perfect Blade.
Yeah, but he's, I think, a perfect Nick Fury too.
He's also a perfect Nick Fury. He's just great at almost any role. Um, interesting.
So it's kind of setting up this kind of darker aspect of the MCU that's going to happen with like Blade, Morbius, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, Black Knight being introduced now, I think there's going to be more of this darker element of the MCU that involves vampires and like Moon Knight and the Black Knight and all these like very dark, hellish kind of beings that are going to be involved. And I think that's going to be an interesting take because, like, I think the MCU has always been very lighthearted. It's had some darker themes, but it's always been
Mhm.
lighter in the end. And I think the introduction of this movie with the heavier emotional weight to it and having
Mhm.
this darker aspect of the MCU kind of like going off with Black Knight, with Blade, with all these, I think is going to be very interesting to see how they do this, you know?
Yeah, they're definitely branching out in genres.
Hmm.
Because right now they have a bunch of different storylines that are kind
Yeah.
of all not similar, but they're all light lighthearted.
Hmm.
They're just the generic, not generic, but they're like comic book superhero movies. But
Right.
you're right. Now they're gonna have like space battles. They're gonna have like the vampires. They're gonna have like just the superheroes normally.
Hmm. They'll
And
have
it's
like the normal like MCU stuff with like Falcon Winter Soldier and Shang-Chi and everything else. They'll have the space stuff with Thor and Guardians and everything else. They'll have the multiverse stuff with Doctor Strange and Spider-Man No Way Home and everything. And then they'll have like this darker aspect of the MCU that'll appeal to people who kind of like that stuff and like the comic books that involve Ghost Rider and Blade and Moon Knights and all that stuff. So I'm kind of excited to see that because I think that it's going to be an interesting experience to see how the MCU does this.
yeah, I'm sure they'll do it in a good way,
Hmm.
but it will be interesting to see how they do it. You know,
Yeah.
I
I
trust
know
them.
you probably won't like it because like you've already not liked the zombie stuff, so I'm concerned as to how you're gonna appreciate this stuff. I don't know how much appreciation you'll have considering
I
you have
trust. I trust Marvel implicitly, so
in
I will
Marvel
still
you
go.
trust.
Yeah, so I will go see the movies and
Hmm.
everything, and
But
then
you
make
will
my judgment
probably
then.
be pissing yourself in the movie theater because you'll
I'm,
be so scared.
you know, in a Big Bang Theory, when Howard, Raj, and Leonard wait in line for a long time, and Howard gets that like pee pack,
Hmm.
I'm gonna get one of those.
Well, I mean, you also have to watch Morbius. I mean, you saw the preview for the Morbius movie,
I
right?
did before the movie. Yeah,
And I think you really have to watch it because as you saw, there are certain aspects of the
I'm
MCU that
definitely
are
gonna see it.
in, yeah, you have to see it, you know,
Mhm.
and then you still have to see Venom. So,
Oh, that's right. I do have to see. Yeah, there's a lot of things I have to see,
yeah.
but I will see them at some point.
Hmm.
I just haven't needed to until now.
Yeah. So, what do you have as a rating for this movie? You kind of mulled this over for a few days. I feel like you've kind of now heard a little bit more about the movie and about what
Mhm.
will be of the future of the MCU. What do you think your rating should be for this movie?
I would say a solid 8.5.
Hmm, interesting. Yeah, I have it as an 8 out of 10.
Okay.
Yeah. There are certain things that I have nitpickiness about, like there's a thing like, with the Celestials, and it's kind of like the weirdness about how they're treated in the MCU. And
Yeah.
like just yeah. But it's not like bad stuff, it's just kind of like nitpicky, like, why is this like this?
Yeah. We might learn some of that stuff later on because we don't really know too much about them. The MCU
Hmm.
Celestials. You
Right.
know. So, I don't know. 8.5 for me.
Mhm.
That's where we
You
put
always
this.
go higher. You always go higher than me, I think.
I think you were higher than me on one movie. I can't think of what it is though.
Shang-Chi, maybe?
Was it Shang-Chi?
I
You
don't
have to go
know.
watch your own video to check. uh yeah,
So that's it.
that's all I got.
Nice. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you liked this review. We're trying to get it shorter and shorter from now on. We're trying to make sure it's not an hour.
Yeah.
This is a good little abridged version. If you want to hear more, we're probably going to talk a lot more about it in the coming weeks because Hawkeye is going to be only in a couple of weeks, and then we have No Way Home, which is going to be like the big banger of the whole year. So we got
Oh
some
yeah.
stuff to talk about, but we can insert some more Eternal stuff as we get into it.
Mhm. It would be fun.
Yeah.
I look
So
forward
thank
to
you
it.
guys so much for watching. Please hit the subscription button and the like button down below. Please hit the Nerdy Wordy Instagram as well as in the description. And until next time, stay nerdy.
Stay nerdy, everyone.